Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here. And I brought Violet with me. This is her book, Heroes of the Dawn. I secured a copy. I'm going to talk a bit about this edition. It's very special. So I'm going to put here right next to her portrait here, which is a gift of Jim Conway from his friend as well. And I just want to say what an absolute honor it is to be here at the inaugural George Russell Summer School. Continuing in the theme of AE as a spiritual genius and touching on our theme of light. This evening, we gather to remember Violet Russell Nee North, not only as the wife of AE, but as a fellow figure in the Irish literary revival in her own right, although largely forgotten. Her contributions and approach to living were of value to Irish society, not only in the dawning of the Irish literary revival, but are relevant and significant today. As we invoke a new dawn with AE studies, we stand the chance to paint a fuller picture of Ireland's cultural memory and spirit by including and learning from the voice of Violet's spirit. It is beyond the scope of this presentation this evening to include the entire range of research I've undertaken to date. I hope that further discussions and forthcoming publications will include diverse analysis and engagement with Violet's written work and her cultural engagements, further embedding Violet in our cultural memory of the Irish literary revival and in the present day. Today, she may serve as an artistic beacon to inspire the spirit of goodness, energy of ancient wisdom, and care for our shared universal family. So, just a wee summary of our presentation journey this evening. We're going to start with the Violet Prism, the Myriad-Minded Woman overview. We'll catch some rays going through a Collected Works tour. We'll touch on the ancient light of both Leon and Aeon, our Violet and George. We'll look over the horizons at her letters and associations, and close up with a new day looking at next steps for Violet. I hope that her significance, not only in AE studies, but in our present days will come through in this initial overview. But before we dive in, I'm going to let Violet speak first for herself, reading a piece published in her first piece published in the Irish Theosophist on the 5th of April, 1896. This is an excerpt. I can't read the whole thing because she goes on and on and on. So we'll start with this. I think it's one of the best parts. Our minds are absorbed by the trivialities of daily life. Sometimes we glimpse something far ahead of us. Light is rayed on things that hitherto were puzzles. And sometimes we hear the voice of the soul speaking to us and guiding us when we are anguish torn. Writhing from the forces that seem to be making a playground of us, forces that appear wholly evil and from which we can see no loophole of escape. But the soul makes itself heard through the fury and the storm of this internal strife. Then, appearing to stand outside ourselves, we view these forces at work, and we know that the soul has the power to conquer them, for belonging to a fleeting nature. And the soul is immortal, eternal, and imperishable. Realizing this, there comes a cessation from the storm, and then the whole being seems to burst forth into song, a song of joy. For every time that we conquer ourselves, we are helping others to conquer themselves. Still, we do not always want to fight. Sometimes we feel so tired, and an inclination to drift along the tides arises in our nature. But having once called on the God within to help us in our struggles towards the divine, drifting for any length of time, it is no longer possible for us. The soul cries, "Arise, mortal, take up thy godhood. Art thou weary? I will support thee." Then once again we take up the burden of the material thoughts and desires, and instead of giving way to them, we determine to make them subservient to us. Is it not time that we grasp some of the knowledge and wisdom waiting for us? It is ours by right of the long past ages, and we helped to gather and garner it. Some mighty ones of the race have gone on before us and found this wisdom of the gods, but we, weak mortals, lack the high purpose, the steadfastness, and the undaunted will which are absolutely necessary for all those who would walk the path of the soul. We stretch out our hands feebly to grasp even the hem of the robe of wisdom. Never, never shall the feeble hand and the faint heart know aught of it. Only the heart, burning with love for humanity, and the hand stretched out to help those who are struggling on can ever hope to approach near the great white flame that burns throughout the ages. That's Violet. That's from Ye Are Gods. Just an excerpt because I won't read it all, even though I'd love to. So diving in to Violet. This is the excerpts here. Sorry, I didn't have it on when we were talking. I forgot. And at the end, she says, all you who are endeavoring by earnest effort and unselfish life to reach the goal, I clasp hands with you in brotherhood. We will go. We will work together in peace and unity throughout all time. So here's a bit of Violet in our prismy-like, myriad-minded AE way. She also is a theosophist, a mythologist and mystic in her own right, with the capabilities to have gifts from ancient wisdom, visions. She works as a printer and a compositress. She's an essayist and a lecturer in the theosophical community. She's a short story writer, a poet, a children's book author, as we have right here in front of us, and a culture contributor both in her domestic sphere and in public spheres. So, finding Violet, because a lot of what we have to date doesn't know about where she necessarily comes from. I have been looking through censuses for anyone called Violet North, and I came across in 1891 in London a Violet North who is living in a boarding house of the core or coves. She's down here, Violet North, and it moved in, cool. And from here you can see she's living with 3 other compositresses, which would support the idea that she is a printmaker, that she's working in newspapers. Need to research more about who's in this household, maybe to find out some leads. But then the best part of this, should this be true, and I'm going to get to more of maybe why it is, we're here over in Bucks, Aylesbury. So that is where she's born. So going back to where she may be born, in Aylesbury, this is an index of baptisms. If we zoom in on Violet Rose North in Aylesbury, we find this birth certificate registration set at the 3rd of February, 1869. And going back, there's a few other leads I didn't put in here, but through Ancestry.com and looking to get in touch with primary source providers, I'm going to follow this up because this birth is registered under a woman named Eliza North. And we know from her marriage certificate that her father's down as Archibald North, and he does not appear on the birth registration. Eliza North in Aylesbury actually comes up with a William North, who I may have followed that thread. I don't want to put it out there as fact yet, but this is where I've come to date. The marriage certificate, we have a father. If we can track him down too, I have a birth registration of a mum, and maybe we have a dad. So it's good news. This is the marriage certificate of George and Violet, and A.W. Dwyer and John Hughes, the sculptor, who were there at the very impromptu marriage ceremony that happened sort of just on a day. He was at the office and casually told his best friend Yates that, oh, by the way, I'm married. And well, I'll go in more. This is Violet's death registration at her home at 17 Rathgar Avenue. She's written down, and Felix and I were laughing over this one. I don't know if you can see this one. Very quickly, what's her occupation? One could think it was the life of an author. Life of author. But in fact, it is wife of author. But we're here to talk about her life of authorship as well. And it documents her cancer. And yeah. So jumping into the Theosophical Society in, does that come up? Okay, there's a picture here of the newspaper where Violet gives a lecture on astral light in the 28th of July, 1895, in London. She's giving a lecture. I had the newspaper cutting there. Don't know what's there. And she also is documented of having, Denson has her down for writing Ourselves, the Great Object of the Theosophical Society, in volume 1, edition number 2 of Ourselves, the periodical from the Bow Lodge from the Theosophical Society in England. This is the crew that was working over there, and we have Mr. Price on the end sitting here. We also have some Knightley families, Archibald Knightley, Bertram Knightley, and then our Price. And in the back is Alcott. He's standing in the back in the corner there. So this is an excerpt from Clifford Back's, which Jim shared lead on Some I Knew Well by Clifford Back's. And in this description, he talks about what Violet was like, what she sounded like, that she had a gentle voice and a gentle aura, that he and her both were shy and their conversation kind of limped. And it was great that maybe she felt great when her husband came back in to take charge of the inexperienced guest. And here A.E. gives us a glimpse. He says, "My wife is a better visionary than I am. Only she does not ponder over what she sees." So I think, I forget who was speaking about the different types, the taxonomy of was it James? And thinking about different types of seership and different types of vision. So maybe here we have a representation of people embodying different types of these gifts and expressing them differently. Now, Jim as well gave us this beautiful lead to John Donahue, who owns this portrait of Violet, painted by Frances Baker in 1911. She's smiling here. It's beautiful to see her light coming through her, the way we signal our light. Frances Baker was the portraitist who worked with A.E., but she was actually very close with Violet. And when A.E. was away, Violet would go and stay with Frances and her children, with her children as well. They would vacation together. And remember this chair here, because it's going to appear then in the next portrait of Violet. So you can tell Frances has her sitting in the chair there. And here her eyes, there's many references to her eyes being the striking blue, and they really come through here and in the turquoise that she's wearing. Yeah. And now this picture I would love to have verified. I know it was on in conversations that we've had a little bit about this might be Violet. I want to verify this one and this sketch of a young girl. It very well might not be, but just something about the essence of her. I just would love to know if maybe these are echoes of her. I also have some ideas about the paintings. There was some reference to the woman in the white bonnet who appears with two children in times in some of his paintings, and I'd love to know if perhaps this could be her.
Here,
yeah.
The reason why we think it's her is there's a photograph of her in Cook Park, and she seems to have a wee bit of an overbite.
Ah.
So the chin is very similar.
Okay, there we go. I don't know if I can get the teeth there too. I'll have to do all the teeth pictures. Yeah, yeah. And then here.
That's it there. Yeah.
What's that? This picture?
This
oh yeah.
The left-hand side.
Yes. So this is like you went to a wedding and people took pictures of you that you didn't really want them to take, like the back of your head with Yates, or like where you're not maybe looking, I can't see your eyes super well. They share them online anyway. So here we have Violet with Sara Allgood and others. This was taken by Lady Glenvey, which is Beatrice Elvery, which is kind of cool, who then does the pictures in her Heroes of the Dawn book. And this takes place at St. Columbus College in 1911. I say it always wrong. Polinfen?
Yeah,
yes, Yates's cousin, at their wedding. So this as well is in the back of their house. This is from the RT Archives, 1930. Here's our Violet standing there, and there we field that they had out the back with an unidentified woman who would love to know who she is. So, quick tour of the works. I won't go all into it because there's many. Inside the Irish Theosophist, in addition to that lecture she gave on Astral Light and the Theosophical Society of England publication, in Ireland we started with Ye Are Gods, which you heard. We go through another kind of principle-y one with Ideals and Ethics. Then we get into her visions and her Celtic mythology, combing through. And I just really would love to draw your attention. We can skip through Ideals and Ethics, but this is kind of nice. I love. Is it that we think too much of acting and not enough of being? I think so. For as we identify ourselves with action, we recede further and further from that inner life, which alone gives birth to ideals and ethics. And this is just reminiscent again, I think, of the shared values that both A.E. and Violet held. And now, the founding of Owenwaka. So this is a really fascinating article that she's written. This is only an excerpt, and I can't wait to have everybody read it. It is beautiful, and I mean, it's a very specific thing for her to publish, so it again may allude to her connection with A.E. and talking about our Ma. And then in the Internationalist, which is the next phase of the Irish Theosophist, we have A Summer Day at Ross's, which characterizes a lot of her visions that she's having when she's out in Sligo. Transplanting of the lotus has been alluded to as perhaps a love story between her and Ae, and then the budding of Morrow in Midnight. In The Lamp, which is Theosophical Society out of Canada, we see the Summer's Day at Ross's reappear, and also a fabulous article called Cast No One Out of Your Heart. And this is between 1897 and 1900. This looks a little bit different. Oh, there was another picture here, but it's okay. There are some places where the earth breath flows so freely that the veil between this world and another grows very thin. And surely Ross's and the surrounding country is one of these places. The presence of invisible beings is sensed in a sudden rapture that falls upon one. And the interior stillness for which no cause can be found in oneself. There on the sands and among the hills of haunted Ben Bulben watches a youth and a maiden. Oh, so here I don't know why the graphic's gone, but she then goes straight into Yeats's Stolen Child. And she then goes on to say, is it here? No. Anyway, she quotes Yeats in this essay, and it's really telling. Then we're at the Irish homestead. We're missing our graphic of this. We have 3 poems straight off the bat between 1899 and 1905. She's dabbling with poetry. And then we have more 2 myths, and then we have a reflection on kind of the mystical, supernatural idea of death. And here are her 3 poems that are in the Irish homestead. Very interesting because both the call and farewell are echoes. Ae has titled poems that are quite similar, so it'd be interesting to look at those in response to one another. Then she also writes a poem called Tir na Nog in Sinn Féin Weekly, as well as a short story called The Hills. She's published as well in the Belfast Newsletter, a short story, the Irish Independent, Weekly Irish Times, more children's stories, and then Pearson's Magazine in the US. We see 3 of her stories that later appear, or that had appeared in her children's book from 1914. They're republished in 1922 in Pearson's Magazine. So, getting to the children's book that most people would know of, Heroes of the Dawn. There's a copy in the National Library of the 1914 version, and it's later then published again in 1918 for a special reason, and 1922 as well. So the 1914 edition has the purple cover. This is the contents inside, and again, the artwork is done by the lovely Beatrice Elvery. It's very impressive. There's black and white photos, and then there's, I think, 10 colored ones as well. So you can just see even the titles, like they're all very mythical. I'll go here now to, I won't read this all, but this is the dedication inside the page. And this embodies her role as both a mother, an educator, and I think the ancient wisdom that she was trying to impart, that as a mother she was able in this lifetime to give to her children and wanted to give to all children through newspapers that they would have had in their homes. So, to Brian and Diarmid, when you were small and could not read for yourselves, and the long winter twilights were wearisome to you, sitting by the fire while the shadows played with each other over the room, I told you these stories of ancient days, when magic and mystery and the folk of other world were a part of everyone's life and everyone's belief. It is because you cared for them that I have rewritten some of those about Fionn and his warriors, thinking that other children might wish, as you did, to know something about the old gods so often mentioned in the legends, and about Fionn and the Fianna na Éireann. I would like to think, too, that in these old stories, you will find something more than mere adventure or enchantment, for I would have you see in them a record of some qualities which the heroes of ancient times held to be of far greater worth than anything else. An absolute truthfulness and courtesy in thought and speech and action, a nobility and chivalry of mind which refused to believe evil of anyone and was ever ready to praise the good in an enemy, and a generosity which would give to the very end. For the heroes knew that in possessing these qualities, they owned a greater wealth than any king of the world had power to bestow. And this is the wealth I desire for you beyond all else. And she's written this in 1914, before, Irish freedom. She's coming through as an English-born woman to tell her children this. And in the back, we see that her dedication, thanks to Standish O'Grady for his work, and she references where she's done some of her learning. So then we come to this book, the 1918, and when you open up the cover, there is the picture of these folks. So why on earth is there a performers of Finn Varamah inside the Heroes of the Dawn book with no Heroes of the Dawn on the cover? And also just noting the spine and the sword again, we see the Sword of Light here for her. So Finn Varamah and this publication are significant because this is a presentation copy that was given by the people who produced Finn Varamah, which is the Irish Santa Claus pantomime, to the children who participated in it. And this is significant because this play ended up being censored. And Violet's book was therefore used as a piece of resistance to give out to the children in the censored play these ancient myths. Inside the National Library copy, it explains this further. And actually, there's an inscription from Nally to Bridie Klein, who's a member of Cumann as well. So that's a bit interesting. And then this is the program that was done artwork by Grace Plunkett, which is also significant, another wife of another man who are all doing great work and involved in the ways that were accessible to them at the times. I think that's important to remember as we are here in this day looking back and thinking of how women could push boundaries at that time and what that might have looked like. It might have looked like art. It might have looked like giving books out to kids. Today we are so lucky, I'm so lucky to stand here and be able to speak, and this is other ways that women would have done that. And this is just the inside cover of Finn Varamah. So then we come to 1922. This book is revived again. Founding of the nation state here. Books are ready for Irish schools. What's on the curriculum? Heroes of the Dawn. And also Deirdre Zae on the same page, listed for advertisement in 1922, September, right when the school year's starting, inside the Freeman's Journal. They are advertising them here. And they've produced, through Monsell and Roberts, the school copy, which you can go and visit in the National Library and hold in your hands as though you're a young Irish student just eager to learn. And also, can we just, for a moment, just pause and look at the trauma of the headline and how both childhood and trauma are existing on the same page? And you're asking children to go to school and look for books while we talk about scenes at a deadly ambush near the O'Connell Bridge. That's another way of thinking about motherhood, of womanhood, of family, of community at this time, and the ways that books and newspapers and people coming together in salons and the value of AE and Violet's voices offered to this time. So talking about Leon and Aeon. Leon, I've been reading a lot about, and I don't know enough about Percy Shelley to dive into his poem about that, but I'm also then looking at the theosophical side of Leon being a creation god, a goddess, an agricultural god, mostly from the Philippines. We hear a lot of that. So I'd love to know where her origin story with that comes from. And we obviously know a bit more about AEs. So Summerfield alerts us to some poems inspired by Violet in between the time of them meeting, 1895 through 1899. We see some significant love poetry. And actually there's a reference to the copy of William Blake's book that is inscribed to Violet, Alter Ego. So there's a poem called Alter Ego, and I'm just curious to look into that maybe more and see if there's any conversations happening there as well. And then we know that in 1932, he dedicates his book, Song and Fountains, to both Violet and Dermot, his son. And then, Jim, I think you shared this already with the group.
No,
Did you?
I forgot to share it with the group.
Oh. Oh, okay. Sure, yeah. So there's lots of different people chiming in about what people think of people's marriages and relationships, and lives are messy then as they are now. So here we are trying to look back with even less threads to go on from, social media and all that. And this is an excerpt that Jim shared with me that is absolutely beautiful. As she lay dying, wrote William Lyon Phelps, a friend called upon her. She said, "Do go into the next room and tell my husband how much you like his new book. It will cheer him immensely and take his mind off for a time from his grief about my illness." Perhaps most of us who have read John Eglinton's memoir remember that A.E. found himself unable to answer a wire from the young lady whom Gandhi employed as a secretary, in which she demanded A.E. come to London immediately. What sort of woman could she be who expected me to leave a sick wife? He told the same friend that his wife could endure suffering better than any I have known. So if we're thinking about Violet being chronically ill over a number of years and what that does to a man, what that does to his family, what that does to their friend group, I mean, anyone who's had anyone sick now with chronic illness or cancer in their lives might know what that feels like. And I think it's an interesting lens to cast upon the documents we're reading, casting upon the letters that we read, the newspapers. I mean, while there's war out in the street, also people are still dying of cancer in their homes. So just something that touched me as I thought about it. And then moving into that idea of associations with people, I've collected many letters by Violet now and looking at some of her relationships with people that might be more commonly known names in the household. Oh no. Oh, I don't know why that happened. Okay, well, we'll start with Countess Markovich. Here we go. We're in the Sligo Independent on the 23rd of July, 1927, where they're reflecting about her funeral. And I just wanted to draw the attention to the wreaths that were left at the grave, both from Violet and George Russell. And after everything that had happened and their different positioning, we here have the wreaths being laid, the community coming together. We also, of course, have wreaths from Maud Gonne. Is there anybody else? Just comrades of Liberty Hall. And if you would allow me to, I just want to check the time. So I have another 20 minutes. Okay. Is it 5:20? Okay, cool. So the other day I was looking through like collection lists and I came across Mabel O'Brien, Dermot O'Brien's wife. And inside her collection records, there was in fact a Violet Russell listed. And I didn't know what it was. And so I went into the manuscript room and turns out to be a 3-page letter to Mabel O'Brien about the aftermath of the Easter Rising. It's written on the 7th of May, 1916. And if you'll allow me to, I'm just going to read a short excerpt from it. I won't go in the back, but they talk all about their dog and about what's happening with the new dog. It's wonderful. So, but before we get to the dog, we are in the war zone. Dear Mrs. O'Brien, this terrible time, as far as the fighting is concerned, is nearly over, I trust, though there is still firing going on over at Ringsend. I went out into the city on Friday for the first time since the trouble began. It is an appalling sight. Of some of the places in Sackville Street, there is not one stone standing on another to show that they had ever been there. The poor old academy's walls are still standing. Of anything else, there is not a trace. The center of the city is a place of absolute destruction. It beggars all description. Mr. Lycett was up just now, and he said that he thought the newspapers had exaggerated, but having gone through the wrecked portions today, he said they had not. They had not half distorted it. We were wondering whether Mr. O'Brien has been up yet, but George said he thought he would have seen him, been there. It was terrific to listen to the big guns going at the last 4 days of Easter week, and every night, about 7:30, the bombardment was especially bad. As the darkness fell, the sky became like one huge flame, where the fires that were raging downtown, and one could see the great showers of sparks rise as one building after another fell. This was my first experience of war, and I never want another one. For nights I did not sleep, and I got into that state when I felt that my ears were stretching right out of the window, listening for the next shot. 2 nights the bullets were whizzing up the avenue here like anything, and one passed so close by my head as I stood out on the steps. Brian went downtown the day after the trouble began, and he said the streets were in an awful state, with barbed wire, entanglements, barricades built out of motor cars, bicycles, trams, vans, anything the Sinn Féiners could get their hands upon. Coming back through Stephen's Green, a man was killed just a few feet from him. Such an attempt at a rebellion was foredoomed to failure. That it was made in Germany, there can be no doubt. I think probably with the idea that it would be particularly embarrassing to the English government just now. You have seen that Madame Markovich is sentenced to penal servitude for life. She has always loved freedom more than anything else. It will be specially hard for her. She has been my friend for 16 years, and though I have not seen much of her since the war began, because we differed so extremely in our opinions about it, I still have an affection for her, because I think she is the most generous and unselfish woman I know. And I think it is because she has these qualities in excess that she is where she is today. I do not think to a great extent I do think that to a great extent she has been the dupe and tool of others. So I'll leave that there. That is her reflections on the aftermath of the Easter Rising and her relationship with Countess Markovich. Oh, this first one was an excellent excerpt from Maud Gonne. She had a police report that she had cataloged. I wish I could get it up for you here. It's okay. I can summarize it. Basically, there was a black flag hanging out her window, and the police had come by and given her a hard time about it. And Violet is next door, and she comes over the garden gate to be like, with the garden wall to be like, what's going on here? And there's such a good excerpt. Maud writes it better than I can explain it. And she basically, Maud pulls out a revolver, and Violet's like, don't you dare use that. And she's like, I won't unless it's necessary. And Violet had been making tea for the women gathering. She's always making tea for people, and she's making tea again for these women organizers. And looking up her affiliations with any of the registered bodies of the women's movement at the time for Irish freedom is something I would like to look at. But we see that she's at least making tea. She's having conversations. She's showing up physically. And then she's like, I have to go make dinner for my kids. And she says something else pretty magical. I don't know why it's gone. But anyway, she didn't want us to know that today. We'll come back for her. This now, America, we're in our Irish-US relations. Mr. Walsh, Senator of Montana in 1921, gives a speech on the Senate floor on the 20th of July, 1921, on the conditions in Ireland. He reflects on a letter that was sent to Mrs. Warren Harding that is also referenced, I found, in the Pittsburgh Catholic on the 31st of March, 1921. And this letter says, this summary of it says that a galaxy of brilliant Irish women, through a cable to the wife of the president, attempted to awake their sisters in America to the necessitous conditions on which they were observers. Now, just here, to look at the names that are on this list, just so we can position Violet as she should be. We have Ella Stopford Green, we have Violet Russell and Susan Mitchell, both authors of distinction. And we have Ellen Gordon, the daughter of Florida Senator, and Lady Gregory. They've all written appealing to the First Lady for American women to wake up and offer support to Irish women who are fighting for Irish freedom here now in 1921. So, a new day, thinking of the next steps for Violet as I close up this conversation for today. A few things to look at could be setting up a critical publication of her Heroes of the Dawn to encompass the 3 editions and give this biographical perspective on the way it was positioned at the time, and then republishing it the way it was intended for children's hands and for children's eyes in the very large print and wide margins. So those are 2 things I'd like to look after as well. I keep looking, and it's exponential, and I have trouble reining myself in sometimes, for more of her work. I would love to collect and do a Denson and make a printed writings of Violet Russell and put that all together, as well as her collected letters, which are quite numerous. They're, again, like AE, spread out everywhere and not consolidated. And then these 2 pieces, looking back and looking forward, to expand our understanding of her contributions within the Irish Literary Revival, and then looking forward, because her message, like AE's, is so relevant today. And as we look to embrace wider voices and more perspectives, I think it's worth a shot. And talking about her now today, with everything she has to say, which I hope everyone will get a chance to read, I think it would really be a gift. So, last story of good news. This is in partnership with Felix. So, being ever thorough, Felix had gone into the library to check out a manuscript by AE called English Versions of Well-Known Oceanic Tales, typescript by AE, right? Enchantment of Tara, it's logged by the National Library. AE, here we go, boop-de-boop. If anyone remembers maybe where we saw, Enchantment of Tara before, it is in fact on the inside to cover Table of Contents. And within this manuscript that Felix went to look, he texted me to say, hey, there's a note here. It says it is actually Mrs. George W. Russell. So I went to go look at it as well. And it is not just the Enchantment of Tara, but it is the first story appearing in here called The Ancient Gods, the second story, Fionn, and the third story, Enchantment of Tara. So I took pictures of what they had there and pictures of what I know in the book. I sent it to the librarian, and just the other day she came back. Dear Sara, thank you for your email pointing out that MS7391, which was erroneously titled English versions of da-da-da-da-da, is actually drafts of Heroes of the Dawn by Violet Russell. I've compared her handwriting with those in her letters to Diarmuid Coffey and James Douglas, and it is indeed hers. I have amended the catalog record to say it's by Violet Russell. Thank you again for alerting us this record update over the weekend on the online catalog. So that's a good news story. So Violet. So just to leave you with a final food for thought, in that which is still to be done, you also have a part. In future ages, they'll tell you how your voice, clear sounding, far reaching, carried its message of light and life over sea and land to many weary hearts. And that's from her fire fountain at Loch Lane in the Irish Theosophist. Oh, thank you.
So I had said earlier on about she actually looked after Countess Margaret's house while she was in prison.
Oh.
And I assume the dog as well, because Countess Margaret had a wee dog called Poppy.
Okay, well, we have Rory here. Maybe that's what she references he's getting along with the other dogs. So she must be...
She's looking after Margaret's dog. Yep.
She's writing from Rathgar Avenue, obviously, but she must be looking after her dog. Rory is a cutie at home now. Oh, it was quite at home now. Sorry, cutie quite. At the present moment, he and Diarmuid are rolling about on the floor with each other.
Oh, they have their own dog as well, they say.
Rory.
That's their own dog.
Yeah. I hope Nep is all right. That must be her dog. I suppose his bulk has reduced a bit by this time. He must have been a chubby wubby. What else? And then, like, casually after that paragraph, she's like, we are still under martial law, the most disagreeable thing. Poor George has to stay away all night and can neither pay nor receive visits. I hope it won't last long. Because she must know that, you know, having that community means so much to him, too. Yeah. I'll look up the dogs more. Yeah.
Thank you. It's very interesting and very enriching to hear about somebody's experiences also of the rising. I just have a couple of questions, and one is about her education. Do we know anything about the education she received? And the second one is, since you're looking at bibliography, I wondered whether you'd looked at, because obviously National Library of Ireland is copyright library, so is the Trinity Library, and I wondered whether you'd looked at our holdings there, which may have inscriptions with copyright library, so unless somebody's taken them on a trip.
I haven't been over to Trinity yet to look at the books there or do a tour.
There may be inscriptions, because you found some books with inscriptions relating to Violet, but I think, what did you say you found? Stevens, was it? I don't know. James Stevens, something.
But like looking at the universities and their holdings.
And then finding any inscriptions.
That's my favorite part of all this work, is like actually doing the physical touching.
The reason I suggest it is because so many of our books are, you know, bequeathed to us.
Okay.
And so some of the collections, you know, but they're also copyright, so they would have come in. And I think that was because of Michael Collins, actually. He was the one who fought for that when he was negotiating the treaty. That Trinity should have copyright library.
And Violet, as a young woman, we don't know about where she went to school. Just answering your other question, I don't know yet. But if what my scent is about her 1891 location and her birthplace, I think I will be able to then trace where this young person may have gone through the system. Yeah.
Wow, Sara, you've taken this monochrome gray woman and turned her into this polychrome human being, right?
When you're done, I have to tell you the story.
I mean, all I knew was that black and white photo, and I was such a horsey, and I'm sorry, I just couldn't figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
But there's so much here. So one question I have for you is, did the Theosophists, when they lived in the household, did they have names?
Like pen names.
Just names they called each other.
Some of them had names that they would have written under. I haven't talked about more.
I looked at some after I left here last year.
Yeah.
I looked at some Althea Giles.
Yeah.
I was trying to track her down. She used a different name.
Okay.
So maybe I'll find some clues.
Yeah.
That will tell you.
We can make our trading cards. Yeah. That's so, because what you're saying about her name too, thinking of Violet and the specific color of your third eye being violet, that she was bestowed this name upon her at birth. and north being a cardinal direction and North Star, and AE being referred to as a North Star. And we know that they're talked about as being, they knew themselves in other lives, and all of this through their work and through their training. But also the way that I even came to this was in the most theosophical, mystical way. Came to the AE summer school last year, and I was like, okay, this is weird. This is bringing together too many facets of my life. Like, I really like this guy. This is cool. Like, I like the way he thinks. And now I want to take up more of my own voice too about this and my own writing. And maybe that's a selfish thing, but I was like, how can I share more of my own voice, my own writing? And I was thinking, well, I'm not confident enough to use my own name, but what if I could use another? And I used to tell people my middle name was Rose because it's Rankin. I didn't really like it. So I was thinking Rose, but instead of West, why don't I pick another cardinal direction? And I thought North, like rising north, Rose North. Cool, Rose North. But then I was like, nah, not complete. Another plants, because I love plants. Okay, violet, a violet rose. Yeah, purple rose, cool. And then I was like, Violet Rose North, VRN. I'd sign off like that, cool, VRN, done. Little Instagram post, I can see it now. But then I Googled it just to make sure no one else was like using it or very like popular today. And then I go on, and I didn't take a picture of what comes up when you do Google her, but one of the first hits is findagrave.com. And that's what struck me first. There's no Wikipedia page, which I hope there will be forthcoming. There's not really anything consolidated about her, but what there is this image. And we were out in Mount Jerome the other day. It was a privilege to visit her. And also I learned that baby Maeve is also buried in their grave. And was thinking a lot about that too, and acknowledging her there, and if there's maybe any way to have that marked or commemorated. I don't know if that's allowed, or anyway, it was just a thought as a mother lying there with her baby. And then, but for me, thinking about, what was I saying? Sorry, I was just thinking about baby for a second. The name, I don't even know what I was going to say. It doesn't matter.
The initials.
Oh, then it was Violet Rose North. Oh, and the grave, and it struck me that if I'm thinking of everything we have now about this multicolored woman, and AE, obviously AE as AE, of course, but at the same time, I think in AE's spirit, he also was such an egalitarian and a feminist and embracing of women and supportive of equality. So to have her beside him in equals, I think could be an interesting thing to look at or to think about as we talk about him in general. Not, him, of course, but that she's there. And at the graveside, that it was on the side just his wife. And that was what struck me first. And I did some creative writing about that and what that means, his wife. And it doesn't mention any of this. So that was what had brought me first to this research. Yeah.
So we had Marie Heaney here yesterday,
Yeah.
wife of Seamus Heaney.
Yes.
So she has done a brilliant retelling of Irish legends called
The
Over
Nine
Nine
Ways.
Ways.
I actually have that with me.
Yeah, the Nine
Of
Ways.
Irish, so there's this tradition almost of literary kind of sub-tradition of the spouses of
Yep.
authors doing retellings. So I think perhaps maybe next year in the summer school, if we were to re-engage with her book, maybe we could do some
Yeah.
readings of Violet North's retellings.
Yeah. And we have Ella Young as well doing Celtic Wonder Tales side by side. The threads between them. Yeah, and I think they have a particular angle with which Violet had in her dedication of their abilities in society. Maybe they weren't going out giving public lectures or publishing tons of like other scholarly books, but they were writing for the masses of children in their children's books, in their school books. I can't wait to do a side by side maybe with Violet.
Violet North's dedication in the book is so moving.
Yeah. And she lost 2 of her 4 children. So parenting and children and education, and based on her biographical story, she may have had quite a complicated upbringing herself. So maybe that carries through her dissemination of her love as well. And she found a home in theosophical beliefs and in, whether you want to put a word on it, theosophical or whatever, larger ancient beliefs that came through her.
Her own 2 children and then all children.
All children.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I just may say,
Yeah.
May I ask, how many violets do you know?
How many violets do I know? I don't know any actually personally.
Trying the same age. Violet Bonham Carter, the
Yeah.
daughter of Asquith.
Yeah.
It's a very superior name.
Yeah, at that time.
And
Yeah.
it's very rare. There's, of course, Richmond Crompton and Just Within.
Yeah.
That's another violet. Perhaps you want to add to these names, but these
Yeah.
names are really tight. They place him in a very specific social context, in actual fact.
Oh.
So she's not only English, she's not a working class English lady, for sure. Probably, I'd be amazed if she is.
Upperclassmen.
And I never
Yeah.
came across anybody like that. But
Okay.
the
The name alone.
and all the names in A.E.'s works are really telling in that kind of way. You know, so
Okay.
it identifies a very special social context, which then spreads out in this kind of way,
Okay.
and gives us a really a new view of the world we're talking. We've actually sort of cancelled it in a kind of way. We've just
So
not
there-
talked about it and so on. So this is very important.
So
I mean,
Violet could be locating her in a certain class
Violet,
stratus.
Try Violet Boncarter
Yeah.
for a start. And
Okay.
that's the world she belongs to, obviously. I mean,
Okay.
Violet
I'm gonna
gives
write it down.
It was
Violet-
quite
Yeah.
it was like Quaker now.
Is it Quaker? Okay.
And also try Aylesbury as well, Buckinghamshire. That's not landed. No.
Yeah.
Also, Sara, one of A's plays,
Yeah.
it was his last play, there's a character called Violet in it as well.
In A's last play.
In A's last play.
Oh.
Yeah. And also, I have photos here of the manuscript that Sarah's talking about, The Enchantment of Tara. And I think, Sarah, with the film play that you mentioned in here, you see the original corrections, and the original time she had for the film play before it was published was actually Fionn and the Fianna. So, like, you see the original corrections here, but what is so interesting, I'll share this around with you all, is how beautiful her writing is.
Yeah.
Like, the way in which she's constantly, like, redrafting, she's so articulate, so she's very,
Yeah.
she's got that specificity in that eye as well,
Well,
isn't it?
I think there's a difference between her children's story writing, like if to do an analysis of like her voice that she has for children, the voice she has in the newspapers for them, but then her theosophical writings, as Felix is helping me transcribe some of them, she uses more of a symposium style because she was lecturing. She in the Theosophical Societies, they're hanging around chatting, they're getting up and having these visions and movements of voice and vibration. So her writing comes across as though it's meant to be read aloud by people, and comma after comma, indicating an inhale as some type of a mystical, I don't know, trip you're to go on. It's intense, but it's a different style, and it's beautiful in its own way.
Like in the book, so just like in the publication she has, for example, they regarded each other in silence, but then she crosses that out and says, in silence, they looked at each other. So she's constantly breaking it down
For children, yeah.
But she's before that
Yeah.
looking at a more bigger audience
High
as
level,
well.
like,
So like she's
She's
looking at two in
digesting
one.
the big ideas down for them.
Yeah.
That's her
Yeah,
gift.
That's a great thing, but she's
Yeah.
thinking on the male plane as well as the children, which is so great to see. So she,
Did you mention William Blake?
Yes. It was a copy of William Blake's poems that is inscribed to Violet Alter Ego. And I didn't bring my copy of the collected poems, but there's a poem called Alter Ego. And I was just curious.
Is there
Confirming
any
that.
connection between A. Russell and William Blake?
Yeah, he's
Oh,
been
yeah.
compared to the two of them have been compared a lot. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
do they
Yates compare like his
The Irish
volume,
William
the
Blake.
crossroads. Yates dedicated
Crossways.
the Crossways. Thank you, Patrick. The Crossways was dedicated to AE on the right side of the page, and then on the left side of that page there is a quotation by William Blake. So so even Yates is even seeing AE in parallel to William Blake as well. But like it's interesting because if that association is happening, also Violet is in that sphere in some sort of way. She is in that spiritual realm.
He said she was a better visionary than himself. He said it himself, so I don't know. And what I'm curious too is when we go back to James Morgan Price, she comes over with him to set up the printing press for the Irish Theosophists here. She was spending time with Price over in England. Who taught who? Who was, more informed by Price at that time when, Violet came to Ireland? And then AE encounters him. I mean, they had met in 1895 in England as well, but Violet was definitely in closer proximity to him, I think, earlier on, and then AE had his time with him too. So that's an interesting relationship to look at. And she says earth breath in her writing as well. So there's echoes of him.
Yeah.
This is all cycling together. And Patrick,
Yeah, there was well, firstly, it just strikes me the other great children's writer who was kind of overshadowed by her husband is Sheila De Valera. She's writing and she's also an Irish language teacher.
yeah.
Sinead.
Sinead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The other thing is that Ellen Smith Gordon is the wife of Lionel Smith Gordon, who becomes radicalised through cooperation and comes to Ireland.
No
So
way.
she'll be over here. So it might be worth checking her Violet's connections to the United Irish Women. And also seeing there are voluminous papers of correspondence files that the ICOS have at the National Archives. So it's going to come out. If she's involved, she's a printer, there's a good chance she's involved with a co-op.
Yeah.
And she might be
What's her name again? Oh, is it the one, the Ellen on there?
Well, Ellen Smith Gordon, but I'm just thinking Violet herself might be involved with the individual.
Well, she gardens. She's obsessed with ducks and eggs. It's insane. Yeah.
She'll do lots of stuff that she's written that would be very fun to
ICOS.
in the ICOS files.
The correspondence and things.
Yeah, we have files for every individual society, so you have to go to the archive to get the index and go back to the Pumpkin House and then go back to the archive. It's a bit of a
How will you locate her in the list of cooperatives?
Hopefully you'll be able to link it to specific co-op. There's lots of printing co-ops. There are co-ops that are
Printing co-ops.
Yeah.
well,
I don't think she gave up on her printing. I
Well,
think you're going to find she continues.
She's
to
connected
print.
with Koala Press, Dunninger Press.
That's a co-op.
So okay, there we go then. It's that because
They might
she's
not be registered with the IAOS,
okay.
but
She's gotten books from them saying thank you, dedications with gratitude to Violet. So she must have been engaged in some way.
The other thing about Aylesbury, my sins, I've been going through the Aylesbury Books newspaper because it's a feminist lecturer who becomes radicalised by rallying.
Aylesbury Books? Books.
Aylesbury,
Books.
Buckinghamshire.
Yeah. I just saw that tonight, yeah.
There's a radical land reformist Church of England minister there who's
Okay.
very, very radical, and he becomes obsessed with rallying because he's thinking about solving the land question in England and transplanting rallying to England.
Yeah.
So there could be a milieu there in Buckinghamshire that she's kind of sitting at. I'm sure there is, but that newspaper is digitised.
That's the Aylesbury Books.
I can send you the links.
No,
There's
yeah.
2 or 3,
Okay.
a lot of photos.
That'll tell us more of a story. Now that I'm going to try to get the original birth cert from this index, this one, this record, to write to them and ask just to have it to see, and then can go and try to.
It's just basically socialist Church of England minister who's kind of who's writing quite a few books.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
That's okay. We can stay in touch, and anyone who has ideas or thoughts, like please, let's talk. Yeah. I have to tally them up again. This isn't even the fullest. I don't even know. It's like 30, 35. It's a lot. Yeah. And hundreds of pages.
You know, behind every great man is a good woman.
Behind every great man, there is a great woman. Yeah. Mothers and
Yeah, Val
wives.
is allowed a man or mystic that he was, you know. And so whenever I was talking about AE, Jacqueline was the one that kept saying to me, "What about his wife? What happened?"
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's given me inspiration and encouragement and information and been so generous to say, hey, here's a lead, go follow it, and pushing me down the road to be able to say, you can do this, go collect it. And it means a lot to me to be able to help bring that all together. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah,
and we'll keep the conversation.
Let's
do it. Well, let's keep the conversation going. Yeah, keep her lit. Let's do it. Yeah, thanks.